Welcome to another episode of the LEX Podcast. Unlike some of our recent guests who've come from the industry and consulting and people with vast HR backgrounds, we are privileged to have here Dr. Ramesh C. Datta today. Dr. Datta is the reason why a lot of people end up becoming HR professionals. He's had an illustrious career. He's still working in many different areas, and his appetite and his curiosity absolutely has no limits. So he's still learning while we have learned all from him. Uh, Dr. Datta served in the Tata Institute of Social Sciences for a little over 25 years before switching tracks. He moved on to the corporate world, starting to work at Coca-Cola, where he worked for a little over 9 years, training over 200,000 grocery owners on how to run their businesses, running mobile schools. So he actually took the school with him wherever he went. So he did that for almost a decade, went into some kind of a retirement, did his own freelance work, and then went back to Tata Institute of Social Sciences in the HR faculty team, and he's now an adjunct faculty member. So if that's kind of a little bit of formal introduction, I'm quite sure I can't do justice to Dr. Datta's experience in 2 minutes. So I'm now handing it over to you, sir. Why don't you introduce the personal side of your life journey?
Thank you so much, Nishit, for the introduction. And I really have to think where do I start, meaning that I have to really recall because I'm 70, okay, 70 years of age and 70 years have gone by, and almost around 35 to 40 years in teaching academics and some research. I do still recall my school days, actually. The earliest I can think of is my school days. And schooling was in a small, very small town in North India, where my father was in railways, and I used to go to a primary school, railway primary school. This
Mhm.
Nishit you do not know, and probably nobody knows this thing. Okay, I went to the primary school from standard first to standard fifth. That was a railway primary school. The town which I am talking about had a population of around not even 1,000
Oh,
families.
wow. Okay.
And that school, single school with a single classroom, long classroom, there were 5 classes in the same class, same room.
All happening simultaneously. So groups of
All
people in one
happening,
room.
yeah, 5 mats were drawn, and on each mat, one standard, one class of first, second, third, fourth, fifth. They used to sit.
Right.
And the first 5 years of my career in that school, and I must say I'm grateful to that school because of that particular learning those days in primary schooling. Uh, I have been able to, if you allow me saying, remain on ground. Okay, I cannot forget those days actually. I have, I really, I really remember those days very clearly. And I went to the same town once my father was transferred from there to some other city near Himachal Pradesh. And I went to same town even while doing a PhD in Bombay University. Okay, and I found the school there. Okay, even after about 15, 20 years or so, I still found the school there. And that's my earliest thing which I can recall. for meeting with you in this podcast. And then once I came to Bombay, I started my uh, doctoral thesis in the area of human capital investment or human capital theory. And that was in 1980, 1976. 1976, I started my PhD, doctoral thesis, uh, human capital theory. So what I recall again of 1970s, that people had not heard of the human capital. Most of the people who were around, they had not heard of human capital. And I had to get in touch with some other PhD students in India who are doing some research in the field of human capital. So I remember there were two more people in India who were doing research. One was in Delhi and one in South India somewhere. So, and I, of course, started working in the field of human capital. As if you know, human capital basically is the investment in health, education, migration, all these sorts of areas, and in training. And then in 1982, after doing my thesis, I joined Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And there, human capital is a part of labor economics. So that's where I started teaching labor market economics. And TSS gave me a great experience, I must say that. And TSS is a great place for all those who want to learn from the field, basically. Because field work, as you know yourself, is a literally a lifeline for the students, of course, but it gives a great opportunity for teachers to learn as well. And after about a year or two, I developed myself a passion for the field work. Even if I had to supervise the student to go to the company twice a week, okay, every semester, 4 semester a year, okay, that much time you have to spend, and all this field work was evaluative. So the teachers are supposed to evaluate that, and it had a quite high weightage, equal to I think 3 courses, okay, of regular courses. And I developed a passion for the shop floors, right? So once I spent another 5 years visiting the shop floors, then I realized whether the student is going for fieldwork or not, I'm going because I'm learning more than really I had ever learned, or maybe more than some students as well.
Right.
Whether it is textile industry, those days textile was a great hub. Bombay was a great hub. Mumbai was a great hub at that time. So I used to visit the textile, and I developed some more interest in the field of technology and labor. So that took me really back into the 40s of the international articles or the books or the studies done in the area of technology. And in India, that technology was, the words used was rationalization. So you used to rationalize, okay. So that was a very big thing. And in US, automation, of course, was there, and that was the first wave of automation in United States, okay, from mechanization to automation. And I used to teach quite a bit in the area of human capital and as well as in the area of technology and labor markets. And after about another 15 years or so, I realized that whatever I have been doing is in the area of neoclassical economics, as they call it. Okay. And labor is something which is, I always found after my shop floor visits, etc., very difficult to fit in the field of neoclassical area of economics, because labor or employee relations, industrial relation, trade unions, okay, which are part of the labor studies, okay, that had not been given a kind of importance or the significance as I think should have been given in the area of labor economics. But the problem was labor was considered only as a factor of production, and that too as a variable factor of production. And anything comes in the way of variability of this is supposed to be creating inefficiencies, right? While I started thinking that sociology and psychology are equally important in our study labor or employees, if you say so, right? Right? Whether they are workers or managers, okay, they are ultimately the human capital, or the, if I can use the word, labor only. They are supplying their labor for regular whatever they earn for that. And with that kind of a learning over the years, number of years, I started teaching a variety of other subjects. I did teach even organization theory, and then which took me into the area of uh, great Taylor, okay, or Fordism, post-Fordism, all these kind of area which were not typically taught in economics classes, which are more in the industrial sociology kind of stuff. And similarly, I started learning more about skills. Human capital is not just the skill, you have to think about competencies as well, whether the skills are lying in the person or in the job. That's very important for us to understand. And that kind of differences are very important to understand in the classroom. And interestingly, I must say that this exposure of mine took place primarily because my shop floor exposure. Nobody taught me this thing, so this was completely on my own. So I spent around 47 years teaching in Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and then, as you know, Nishit, you definitely know that the students at the time of the feedback, etc., used to talk about that the faculty should have industry experience in order to be more effective in the classroom. So I took that seriously actually, because I had been reading quite a bit, and there was one book which I even today remember, uh, on Toyota. I think it was Japan in the Passing Lane. There is a library, and uh, somebody had joined Toyota in order to understand Toyota from inside. Now, my aim, honestly, was the same thing when I joined Coca-Cola. Let me try understand Coca-Cola from inside. Okay. I was influenced by that small book,
Mm-hmm.
and I started learning more about how the bottling plants really work within the Coca-Cola, and how do they do business in Coca-Cola, and how do we develop competencies for the grocery or the mom and pop store which you mentioned. And I had fortunately a lot of freedom under my boss, so we introduced something called Coca-Cola University on the Wheels. Okay, and which was a mobile school, which you can call it. We went to almost hundreds of cities in India and trained the grocery people. And I must say that I remained in the field of education only, even while in Coca-Cola. That was very motivating for me. And this kind of motivation was primarily intrinsic. I still stand by that. It is completely intrinsic motivation.
We
So
will
that's
talk about we will
we'll
talk about
about
motivation today.
talk about that as
Yes.
well. So you know that I was very passionate again about the intrinsic motivation. I was very passionate about that, why the compensation probably cannot motivate you, or why the bonuses do not motivate, etc. These kind of things. And there are quite a few good authors which I had studied nationally, internationally, who are of the same view, but there were very few people at that.
So let's kind of jump many years. You've seen and you've spoken about technology and labor. That
Yes,
is the most burning topic today, technology and labor. But in
absolutely.
context of AI, which you are also very passionately following about. So what I wanted to kind of bring in is basically two dimensions. One, something that you talk frequently about, which is the meaning of work or the meaningfulness of work. And the second is AI. So how meaningful will work remain in the context of AI with all of these changes happening, a new model coming every few months, which is far superior to the previous model? What people will do will change in the way people have been working in the past, because now a simple kind of a software program can do what someone took 20 years to learn. So how does that impact the whole meaning behind work, and related to that, the motivation and all of that?
That, of course, is a very interesting and very important question which you are raising, which is a question in my mind too. Okay. And honestly, there are not many people around me with whom one can discuss these things. I'm happy that you asked me. I have one or two people only, and my age group, unfortunately, are not around. So, in the faculty here as well. But let me start with artificial intelligence, actually, to come back to the meaning of work which you are referring to. Uh, Artificial intelligence is nothing else but continuation of computerization or automation, if you want to say it. It's the same thing, actually. It is it is much more than that, I would say. That and I do understand that there are people who think about artificial intelligence as literally the new electricity. Okay, the way or steam engine. Okay, the way that had really revolutionized the industrial world. Similar things are likely to happen or are already happening in some other countries. How much it is happening in India, I do not have exact data on that, but what I see around or read around on the basis of this, quite a few attempts have been made by some of the companies to introduce artificial intelligence, which ultimately is nothing else trying to mimic the human intelligence, which is as yet has not happened. Okay, so big thing about artificial intelligence is the uh, computability has the speed of it has gone up like anything. Okay, the the computers have become very powerful. Okay, actually, whatever we are talking at the moment, okay, is significantly because of the artificial intelligence. Okay, I mean, you and me contacting now, and Anna with us, and then whatever is happening is because of that. And I have a phone next to me, mobile, which is literally hundreds of times, thousand times faster than the first computer I had in my office. Okay, so the desktop at that time. So it has changed hugely. Um, it has lots of impact on the labor market, okay, or in the on the shop floor, if you allow me to say. And I can take the shop floor little, not just the industry or the textile or some major companies here, um, but digitalization and digitization of the data, okay, has helped artificial intelligence in a very big way. Okay. So one impact I see that lot of explicit knowledge, okay, which is documented, okay, is all within the company or even in the countries, is there with you instantly, literally. Okay. If I want to download the data today, I can do that in 10 minutes. Okay. In various area, let's say in the area of labor market. Okay. So I can download that. Okay. I can get a lot of information and the data about even the companies. Okay. Interesting part for me as an academic, which I'm passionate about, is this in this area, is that uh, whether artificial intelligence has been able to codify all sorts of knowledge, right? I believe on the basis of significant reading and the research which has been going on world over in the last 20 years or more, that knowledge typically has been uh, defined in two ways. Okay, right? One is codifiable knowledge, which is the explicit knowledge. So if I say that most of the books and the articles and the videos which you use your chat GPT, okay, or GPT-4, okay, right, is primarily coming out of the explicit knowledge. There is an implicit knowledge as well, which I definitely think that most people world over have not given that much attention to as it should have been given. And in some of the universities, some research in that field is also taking place, which is called tacit knowledge, basically, right? And tacit knowledge and the explicit knowledge together form the overall knowledge. But this whole is bigger than the parts of it. Okay. This I would like to further clarify, and by saying that significant part of the knowledge in the society or within an organization, okay, is tacit knowledge, which even the employee himself or herself doesn't know that they have,
Hmm.
right? It's the unconscious kind of thing.
So that's what I
Okay.
wanted to also kind of bring in, because when we talk about tacit knowledge and we talk about a labor market where it's not uncommon for organizations to let their employees go. Right? So
Yeah,
that, um, s- in some countries, it's very easy to kind of let people go, just say you are fired and you're gone. In
yeah,
some countries, for example, in Europe, you need to kind of have a much more difficult kind of documentation process and a much longer process before which people are let go. But the fact is, in a vast majority of the global population, organizations are letting their old time employees go.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
remember reading this article a couple of weeks ago where they talked about someone who used to work in a shoe manufacturing company who
yeah.
was let go after I think 68 years or something of service.
Hmm.
And we're not talking about someone who was 68 years old. We're talking about someone who
Yeah,
had worked for
yeah,
60. Now, when this category of employees leaves, and also sometimes in a kind of ageist form, the older employees are let go first, or they're given a voluntary retirement kind of a program.
yeah.
How would organizations prepare to retain the knowledge, the tacit knowledge that these people with significant experience carry? Because not every role is based on technology that is 3 years old. There's a lot of work that happens on technologies that are stable, that have been around. People have picked up expertise over the course of 20, 25, 30 years working in a specific area. So how would organizations, or how would what would be the best way of trying to retain that knowledge?
Uh, I think that's the area in which most people, or the few people, but most of those few people are working on at the moment in these years internationally. And I also have been taking interest in that area. I personally think that managements in these companies or these organizations, they somehow are not paying that much attention to the experienced employee whom they are letting go. Their experience is not really valued. In the process, I believe that lot of knowledge, especially the tacit knowledge, which are very difficult to again build it, okay, very difficult to develop it, because it primarily comes out of the experience on the job, okay, through learning by doing or through learning by observation, okay, right, through apprenticeship kind of a program, okay, it comes out of that. It doesn't come out of the formal schooling, MBAs, or the graduation. It doesn't come out of that. Okay, it comes out primarily from the experience of the person who has worked on the job. Okay, so I personally have been trying to really understand in two sectors and two companies, if I can use the word. One is in the area of paint, decorative paints. Okay, and this is a more than $1 billion market value company in India, the largest company, and where I believe that there was a workers' occupation uh, which required the worker basically to match the shade visually after mixing the resins or the raw material, and he has to mix it in such a way, if the he gets a master shade from the lab, okay, and that master shade he has to match with the shade which he is making, okay, and he has a one employee working with him whom effectively he is passing his knowledge on, which is a tacit knowledge, okay. Now when the gap is around 5% of between the matching master shade with the shade which he is preparing, okay, that's the time he is spending a lot of time in focusing. And this thing, I'm using the word focusing, but this is very normal for him. And interestingly, this particular job or the occupation within the company had been introduced in the 1970s. Okay, in 1970s, when some engineers at a very higher level, they realized that this is a very important area. They made them highly skilled. they were highly skilled people. Okay, and this is the activity was known as tinting, and the person who was doing was known as tinterman. Okay, so it is a highly skilled activity. They are unionized at that time. Okay, and their job was only basically mixing the raw material and matching the shade with the master shade. Okay, that was the activity, and they could do that, and they have been selected very carefully by the management in this particular activity, highly skilled, and they were more paid, but they were in the worker category. Okay, right? I have been trying to study that over the last now almost a year or so. Okay, by visiting the factory, and there are no tintermen left, right? But tinterman's job is still there, okay, which is done on the computer,
Yeah.
right?
So
It is not manual anymore,
it's not manual anymore.
right?
And I'm thinking there would be many other jobs like the Tinterman where the
Huh?
computer will be able to do a better job with the color codes and like going into million different shades within
Yeah,
a color, which the human eye just cannot even figure out.
yeah.
Now, let's take possibly a worst possible case kind of a thing, though I'm quite pessimistic in this sense, and it may happen while I'm still alive. So
Okay.
let's assume that computer takes the jobs of many, many people there, right? And the reason I'm pessimistic is because I know that the software we've developed using AI
Hmm.
can do the work of at least half of the number of people in a typical HR team in a matter of seconds. Right? So which also means that either those half the number of people should do different things, or those half will no longer be required, depending
Hmm.
on what the company wants to do. And it's not just our product, it's any product, like any kind of automation will that happen. So I'm looking at a worst possible case where AI will take away a lot of jobs. A lot of new jobs will be created, but not everyone may be ready or upskilled to start doing those jobs.
Yeah.
And we may end up in a situation where the government starts levying a super tax on AI companies and starts introducing a universal basic income. You know, if we have to go back to your kind of expertise in economics, because UBI has been trialed, it didn't really work out because maybe the quantum of payment wasn't kind of meaningful enough, or the government didn't have enough money to carry it on for a long time. But let's assume we are in a world where the top five companies put together, their net profit per year is more than the GDP of 90% of the companies in the world put together.
Yeah.
It would
Hmm.
then make sense to kind of create a super tax on these companies and make them pay and use
Yeah.
that money for UBI. What happens to motivation, autonomy, meaning of work? Because there will be work. I'm not saying work will go away, but not everyone may be prepared to do that new work.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you have a very relevant question. But if I have to speak at the micro level, okay, right, macro, which you are saying is a very big thing for me to really um, think about. Yes, I do know that some of the data centers are using the water, which is equivalent to many cities in some of the countries and all that, their requirement and all that because of cooling and all that. So they are big companies, and they are some of the big companies' annual turnover is more than some of the five different countries all put together. Okay, I am aware of it, and what is happening in the area of UBI too is very important, and a lot of debate over the last 10, 15 years somewhere in India too had been taking place. But I think even before that happening, already today, I think motivation has become a very difficult, very, very difficult task. Okay. Now, I mean, I used to find advocating for the intrinsic motivation in the classroom 30 years back itself very difficult to really uh, put it across in the student's mind, if I can use the word. And now I find it even more difficult, I think. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I think um, work for the jobs have become very transactional. Okay. So, which I think, independent of the UBI thing, which I think may not help the companies themselves. Okay. Because if you want to really engage the mind and the body of any employee, okay, on a job within the company, right, you have to still work beyond transaction. You have to still have the trustworthy environment. You have to still have relationships, right? Your relationship cannot be completely transactional. Okay. If you have to innovate, okay, if you have to even go for developing tacit knowledge, okay, you still have to be beyond transaction. I mean, you can't be transactional. It is not possible. Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, many companies are going to grow on the basis of the knowledge within the company, right? If you have today, let us say 100 employees, and you are going to have 50 employees later on, still these 50 employees requires you to have a relationship with them, which cannot be transactional. You have to still motivate them, right? And motivation also cannot be only on the basis of the pay. Okay. You have to spend time with them. You have to spend time with your employees when you do not have any work with them, right? That's the important part. When you have work with them and you are trying to motivate them, that is no motivation. Motivation happens when really you really provide some kind a real autonomy, as the word itself, discretion to them at work. You have given me this job or to do. Uh, don't do micromanagement. Okay, don't sit on my head. Leave it to me. If you want me to innovate, right? If you don't want me to innovate, then I will do by the rule, completely by the rule. Okay, you being there along with me. Okay, the point which I'm saying is even if the number of employees decline, okay, with artificial intelligence, which I think may not decline to the extent everybody is talking about, because many of the complete jobs may not go. Some of the tasks may go within the job, right? So jobs, most jobs have tasks. So computers or the AI is going to or ML, okay, is going to take away only part of the task, part of the job, right? Which has happened in the case of, let's say, Tinterman. I said that Tintermen are still there, but they are on computer, right? Right. So if the earlier Tintermen were doing the job, let us say, mixing or matching the shades, let's say, of in a day, let us say 20 shades and all that. Now these people are doing more than hundreds, okay? And sooner or later, they also may become redundant because all data is there on the computer, okay? And once you have the data, then the machine learning can really generate in one go itself, okay, the match, okay, right? And you, on the basis of that data, you can create an algorithm and you can directly supply the paint to the dealer itself.
Correct.
Okay, right? Now, another example I can give you, Nishit. I'm working also in the area to some extent in the area of tea industry. Okay, tea is a very India is number two in the world so far as the amount of tea which is produced in it, right? And even in consumption terms, okay. And if you do not know that after water, the most people in the world drink tea. Okay, tea is number two. Okay,
Not surprising.
so I recently had been going to some of the fields again, field work. Okay, in this particular case, tea industry and plantations. Okay, in plantation from plant, tea plant, soil, tea plant, and plucking till the factory, okay, where the tea leaves are withering takes place in the production process. And finally, it goes up to, okay, really making the tea, okay, finally, and a variety of tea. Now, all this variety of tea, somebody called tea taster. You do have tea taster, okay, like wine tasting, okay, tea tasters are there. So auction, at the time of auction of the tea, which is a very big activity, okay, tea taster have to really determine the quality of the tea and at what price they can sell in the market. So tea taster's knowledge is also tacit knowledge,
Yeah.
right? Right. Now, again, coming back to tacit knowledge, okay, companies have been trying to really digitize that particular knowledge of the tea testers, right? They have not succeeded as yet. They have
Yeah.
not succeeded. That means tea tester is there. Also, companies attempting it using artificial intelligence, okay, in order to really codify the tea testers' knowledge, especially the test knowledge, okay. So they have not been able to do as yet. And to my knowledge, it's the same is the case internationally also. Okay, I'm not talking only about India. And India, in any case, is a big country. Big tea production happens in India, and significant export is also there. And a significant part of tea, probably, which you and my other friends in US are drinking, going from India only. Various companies are there, very many multinationals are there, okay, and individuals, small growers are there, and tea variety is also there, from small grower to large grower, and niche markets are there, green tea to variety of other teas are there, okay. So this is also another area. But I think that labor market, like automation time, it had happened. Then rationalization started taking place, and a lot of people, 30 years back, I know the textile mills, etc., had to close down because of the technology significantly, and the price of the land as well in places like Mumbai. I mean, that particular thing had happened, because if the opportunity cost of running a textile mill in Mumbai is much higher, okay, then the textile mill has to be relocated. And it has happened. It had happened. So many companies from your time itself, when you passed out to now, there are many organizations or the companies are not there anymore in the area where the land is really very expensive. That had to happen. Similarly, you have to go to smaller cities where the talent is available, okay, and you have to hire the people from there for the similar kind of job, the MBA which you did from TISS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Many other institutions have come up where they are giving good skills, and they can definitely join up. So overall, full jobs are, the people are not getting whole and soul replaced. Okay, right? And motivation and autonomy still remains very important factor, according to my understanding.
So let's get into the kind of final phase of the discussion. This is a great
Yeah.
kind of segue.
Yes.
Now, obviously, whole jobs may not go away,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing. So we are talking about reports from IMF, which says 60% of jobs in the advanced world will
Yeah.
become impacted.
Yeah.
They're not saying the jobs will disappear. They're saying the job will get impacted. What that means is that there will be a completely different way of doing it, which,
Yeah.
if I kind of go back with your explanation and look at tasks, in many jobs, certain tasks will be completely automated. They will disappear. The size of the job will shrink because
Yes.
whatever is left will be a smaller job. uh,
Yeah.
which also means like the tinter man, where one person used to do 20 and now the system can help one person do 100. You don't need five people, you need one person.
Yeah.
So there will be some kind of consolidation in terms of the number of people required to do the job. But at the
Yeah.
same time, they are also saying half of that 60%, those jobs will become much bigger. So there will be some jobs that will become super enriched because they are the ones which are left with all of this knowledge and the responsibility to deliver it using technology or with other human beings. That's a separate thing.
Right.
Now, you've been studying skills and competencies and kind of education all this along. And I think that is one of the biggest areas for us to focus on. So, how do we prepare for that future where suddenly my old job is no longer what it used to be? And that suddenly is not 20 years from now. That suddenly is possibly 2.5 to 3 years away from now. So, how do I change my mindset? How do I change my approach? Because when my generation started working, we came in with the view that you learn in university and then you implement it for your job. And it is so strange that in the 23, 24 years that I've been working, this is possibly my fourth inning in something new that I'm doing. So my half-life in that sense has been 6 years. So how do we prepare ourselves to respond to newer jobs that may not be there today, but may come up? How do we change our mental model and how do we prepare for that time?
I suppose very challenging question you have posed to me. But whether the multitasking is going, which you are saying, enriching the job basically of the remaining people within the organization, if I have to say, whether multitasking is going to serve the purpose is one thing. But multitasking happening was happening even earlier when the computer numerically controlled machines had been introduced and the multitasking had been introduced. One thing happened with the technology or artificial intelligence law development was that that the level of formal education required for the job had declined. So my one kind of a thinking, okay, is been thinking of this thing over the last few years that in future the formal education will become less important. What will become important is on the job work, right? Rather than going a post graduation, you may start working from graduation level itself. Indian sense, if I'm talking about, right? In the Indian case.
My
So
daughter is being told not to even consider university, just start apprenticeship.
yes, yes. Now, uh, number of jobs as such may decline, but if you have to prepare people for the future jobs, which I think, see, AI is very unlikely to become human intelligence. Okay, even in the next whatever number of years you can think of. It is not going to become. Okay. Over the last 30 years, the futurists have been talking about, and very well informed, very well educated people from have been talking about that the future of work, okay, is likely to be without work. Okay. Uh, but work is still there. Okay. Uh, Only thing is that the variety of things which or the products which you couldn't imagine even 10 years back, now that is in the market and you are still buying that. Many people are still buying that. Okay, those products. Um, so the demand for the skills which are likely to be more unstructured, conversational, okay, requiring tacit kind of a knowledge, okay, is likely to be higher. If a person after graduation say that I'm ready to work, okay, as an apprentice, okay, under somebody, or I'm ready to come as an intern, okay, that is likely to open up much more, okay, compared to your time even, that is 20 years back, okay, that you want to be the kind of job which you had. Those kind of jobs will take little more time for you to rise up to, okay, because you will be learning on the job, okay. So learning by doing, okay. So that kind of thing is very likely to be in demand, and the skills which are, again, as I say, people skill, okay, people skill, let's say empathy, okay, is not going to be mimicked that easily by the machine. Machines can't do that, okay. Consciousness, okay, that machines cannot do, okay. uh, Even today a robo doesn't know. You see, when Nishit, you get up in the morning and you go for a walk, you never realize that you learn walking. Once upon a time, you started learning, you learn how
How
to
to
walk,
mm,
right? Even
or to
today, the
cycle.
robo companies do not know how to make robo walk,
Mm,
right? It takes long time. Only thing is you literally have put this learning of your in the back. That means unconsciously, right? You get up and walk, okay? Or as Michael Polanyi says in the tacit dimension of the knowledge, if what he said that uh, it is, you cannot really teach your children bicycling, let us say, okay, with the help of a manual. You cannot do that, right? Even today, you cannot do that.
mm,
People have to learn while bicycling. They have to fall, get up, again do. I have done that. You have done it, okay, right? It's very strong example, okay. Even today, you, if you see me at Heathrow, okay, in thousands of people there, you will be able to recognize my face very easily, okay, right? Uh, Completely unconscious knowledge which you have of me, on my face,
mm,
okay, you will be able to do that. So, and if you, even today, many of the surgeons, if I can take the example, even from Harvard, for example, right? Harvard Medical School and all that, okay, their write-ups which I read is that when they do surgery, okay, finally what they are using are their experiential learning of tacit skill, okay, right? Procedural completely knowledge which is there in the books, etc., is handy till a point. After that, it is just your experiential learning.
mm.
So I do have a still positive. I'm still optimistic in this regard that AI will help some places. For example, in India too, there are recently Financial Times, one of the authors have written on this thing that in a small place in Maharashtra, tuberculosis have been diagnosed much more easily by with the help of artificial intelligence, which is a very great thing to make use of the artificial intelligence. So there are many positive, and there is a lot of bad things also happening. That disinformation, as you know, is a very big industry. Okay, so that also is happening around.
Any final words of advice for a youngster getting into the world of work, where the future, as you know, people have been predicting for the last 50 years how the future will look like. And generally we find parts of it right and parts of it fiction. So if you were to put on your kind of past experience all together and try to kind of forecast about how things should be and what should people focus on, having taught like literally thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, what
Hmm.
advice would you give to people to, in a way, future proof themselves?
Uh, First of all, to me, having spent almost no uh, more than 60 years of my life quite cautiously, I personally think that uh, future is already around. Okay, right now when I say already there, it is not. It is little imbalance kind of thing that in some places, in some sectors, you find the future, in some other sectors, you don't find. So that is a problem, okay, in the sense that the balance is not there. But the balance was not there even at the time of automation too. Okay, so uh, the one thing which will be very handy for the younger generation, I still think that uh, they will have to prepare themselves to learn on the job, right? If I can use the word, let us say, vocational education, okay, it will have more impact. There will be much more learning through vocational education. In fact, actually, the fieldwork which I had done or which you had done is nothing else but an element of vocational education only within the formal education. That is why your fit in the company was much better than others, those who are postgraduate.
Completely
That's the
agree.
reason, right? So I still think that learning by doing and is the most important thing, which will come very, very handy. I don't think that the formal education is going to become more important, that it has reached its peak. I read some of the books even written in USA where they are finding the number of people who are coming for higher education is declining. Actually, in England, for example, years back when I was at Warwick University and Cardiff, two places I have been, and there also I found that uh, some of the English professor whom I was with, they told me that none of the PhD students in economics were actually British years back. Okay, so the people coming for PhDs and higher education probably, I think, will the number will decline, and the demand for the people with the people skill, okay, on the job is going to increase in future.
With that thought, let's wrap up today's session. It's been enlightening as always talking to you. And I'm sure our listeners will find a lot of useful content here. This is not the typical CHRO session where we talk
Ah,
about things happening on day to day. We've covered a 50 to 60-year spectrum in terms of how the world has changed and how the world continues to change. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, sir. Thank you so much. It was
thank
amazing having you here.
thank you very much, Nishit, for giving me the opportunity. And as you know, I'm completely extempore on whatever I have spoken. So just take care of the output which is
As
coming
good
out
as
from your.
ever.
So we'll definitely talk again. And all the best to you in whatever you are doing. And I wish you all the best to succeed the way you want success to be. Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.